Anthropic just built an AI model that found more security vulnerabilities in a few weeks than most professional cybersecurity researchers find in their entire careers. It found a bug in OpenBSD, which is known to be one of the most hardened operating systems on the planet, and it's been hiding for over 27 years. It found a bug in FFmpeg, which is the software that handles basically all the video on the entire internet, that over 5 million automated tests had missed in the past. It found multiple bugs in the Linux kernel that let a regular user become root, not just find them, chain them together into a full attack on its own. And Anthropic's response was, "We're not releasing this to the public." Pause. Here's why I think that matters more for your business than you might realize in the first place. So, right here on screen, we have the article talking about how they're announcing Project Glasswing. The bigger thing in it is you'll see they're announcing, oh, we have Claude Mythos preview right here, right? So that's the new model. It's unreleased right now. Anthropic's keeping it locked down. Their best public model right now that we still have is Opus 4.6, but Mythos blows it basically out of the water in every benchmark. The software engineering benchmark, so if I scroll down a little bit, well, here we can see the cybersecurity vulnerability reproduction. You can see it's this much better than Opus, but that just, these are numbers. What does it really mean? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, right? And if we look at some of our benchmarks that we're often looking at, the software engineering benchmark pro, I mean, dude, it killed Opus and absolutely everything. So it's definitely a crazy model, because right now I feel like Opus is like 6 inches, maybe a foot away from being like AGI, where it can do everything. Because right now, you just add a harness and a few cron jobs or some other stuff to give it kind of like a heartbeat. Then eventually, like, you're pretty much there. That's what this article is covering. That's the issue that we're running into. Is AI is getting so good now that it's better than any cybersecurity researcher on the planet, better than every programmer that's ever lived. Mythos is blowing past Claude Opus on everything, every single benchmark. It doesn't matter what it is. But honestly, screw the benchmarks, because here's what it did like in reality. So OpenBSD, if you don't know it, it's an operating system that paranoid security people run on firewalls and critical infrastructure. Code that's been audited by what are known to be some of the best security minds on earth for decades. This model, it found a vulnerability that's been there for 27 years. Just by connecting to a machine and running it, it could crash it remotely. Okay. It doesn't need to send it some link or file or a RAD or anything. It can just do it remotely. It doesn't need to trick you to get access to your system. Now, FFmpeg, the software that plays video on your phone, your browser, basically absolutely everywhere on the internet, a 16-year-old bug it found, one line of code. Automated testing tools had hit that line 5 million times and never caught it. Now, what about the Linux kernel, the software that runs most of the world's servers? The model autonomously found several vulnerabilities, and it chained them together. It went from an ordinary user access to complete control of the full machine, full takeover. Nobody told it to do that. And the thing that actually made me stop, they didn't train it to hack. They trained it to write code. That's the craziest thing about this, right? And being good at code made it good at breaking code. That just kind of happened on its own. So yeah, is Opus good? Yeah, Opus could do most of this, but you still have to know the cybersecurity or the how to hack, essentially. But now Mythos is like doing it on its own. It's so good at that point, right? It's kind of like training someone to be the best locksmith in the world. You don't teach them to break into houses, but now that they understand locks better and they can basically better than anyone alive, right? They can walk into any house, any car that they want, but that skill, it kind of comes free just from doing the trade over and over. So most of the coverage I've seen on this so far is this is so cool or this is so terrifying, and both are true. But I think there's a more practical angle that I haven't seen anybody talk about, and they're not really going over in the article, especially if you run a business. So CrowdStrike's chief technology officer said this: the window between a vulnerability being discovered and being exploited by an adversary has collapsed. What once used to take months now can happen in minutes with AI. That's what he said. The CrowdStrike CTO said months to minutes. Think about what that means. Right now, your business, it has a security stack. Maybe you got an antivirus. Maybe you got a firewall. Maybe you're paying for some managed security service. The assumption behind all of it, when a vulnerability gets discovered, there's time for the patch to come out, time for you to install it, time between the hole exists and someone's already climbing through it, but that window is gone. And here's the part that's kind of worrying me the most. Anthropic is being responsible here. They're not releasing Mythos publicly. They're giving access to 40 plus organizations to use it defensively. Amazon Web Services, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, Cisco, CrowdStrike, JP Morgan and Chase, 100 million in credits for tokens that they're donating, and then 4 million to open source security projects. But they're also being very clear that the capabilities are going to proliferate, right? So every AI lab is building better coding models right now. And if being good at code automatically means being good at hacking, which it does, then every frontier model, every company is training right now is going to become a better hacker than any human and just better hacker than the current AI models, whether that's their goal or not. What Mythos does today, smaller open source models will probably do in 12 to 24 months. Anthropic can't uninvent this anymore. Nobody can. So the question is, will the attackers get access to this? The question is when. It's not will, it's when. So here's kind of what I actually think that this means for business owners specifically. Number one, the cost of cybercrime is already estimated at about $500 billion a year globally. And that number doesn't go down from here. It goes up because the attackers are about to get dramatically better while the defenders are still running the same playbook. Number two, security has always been a Fortune 500 problem. Big companies, they hire red teams, run penetration tests, pay millions for audits. Small businesses, we get antiviruses and we hope for the best. What Glasswing is doing, the project that Anthropic started, is trickling down like that Fortune 500 level defense to the small businesses. That's their goal with this, right? When Mythos finds a bug in Linux on a web framework that your website might run on, that fix, it will now reach you too. You don't pay for it. You don't even know it happened, but you're going to be protected by the same scanning that will protect Apple, Google, Amazon Web Services, right? Number three, and I think this is the most, one of the things people are still kind of missing when they're talking about this, the offensive capability is open, the defensive capability is closed. Anthropic controls who gets Mythos, but the knowledge that this is possible, well, that's out now. Every AI lab on Earth just saw what Anthropic built, and they now know that their coding models probably have the same emergent hacking capability at some level, right? Some of them are going to eventually find it. Some of them are going to be less careful about who gets access, probably GLM, like ZAI, all the Chinese models. But the attackers don't need Anthropic's model. They just need the knowledge that this is possible and a good enough coding model to replicate it. It doesn't have to be Mythos. That's the thing. These models, these good models, Opus 4.6, Sonnet 4.6, GLM 5.1, Minimax M2.7, Mimo V2 Pro, all of them are really good and already public. A lot of those are open source. So really, what do we do with all of this information? Honestly, I think the takeaway on this is pretty simple, especially if you're running a business. Like, if your security strategy right now is I'll just deal with it when something happens, that was already bad before now, but now you're almost going to be shooting yourself in the foot. But you don't need to panic because the patches from Glasswing are already rolling out to the software that we're using every day. Your operating system, your browser, your video players, they're getting fixed right now, and you'll get those updates the same time I do, same time everyone was. And it'll be silent. You don't have to download anything. But the structural problem overall, it's not going away. The gap between offensive AI capability and defensive AI capability is getting wider. Anthropic gave defenders a head start, which is genuinely the right move, but a head start is not a permanent advantage. So if you've got customer data, if you've got proprietary system, if you're running anything that would hurt your business if it got compromised, now is the time to actually take this seriously, not because AI is scary, but because the economics of getting attacked just kind of changed permanently. So I'll drop the full Anthropic article in the description. It's definitely worth reading. Subscribe if you want to see how this thing plays out, and like the video, leave a comment, do all that YouTube stuff. Let me know your thoughts below. I read every comment, so I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, this has been Nolan. I'll talk to you later. Peace out.